Hey friends, it is Randy, and you know what it means. It's Building Wins Live time. We have had an outstanding week this last week at Source One Marketing and at Building Wins Live, and we're going to culminate that week again. Again, I get so excited about it. Again, with another great guest from the industry, a guy that you're going to enjoy chatting with. He's from Old South Wood Preserving. I had to get that right. In beautiful Summertown, Tennessee. And it's Eric Stoll, and we're going to be here in about 20 seconds or less, and we're going to have a great conversation with an industry bud. So do not go away. Boom, there we are, buddy.
Hey, good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you, my friend. It's great to have you. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I guess I'm assuming you're a little busy getting a new business off the ground.
It is,
Yeah,
but you got to take time for what's important.
there you go. There's a balance, right? We always got to work on the
Right.
balance thing, and that's a challenge, right? When you're doing what you love, right? And obviously you love this business, it's hard sometimes to find a balance, right? Because if people find balance with like doing other life things when they really hate what they're doing with work, right? Because it's easy to find balance because you just want to get out of work and go do something, whatever something is, right? But it's more of a challenge when you're really loving the work part, right?
Something about balance that I believe, Randy, is that you have to be okay to be balanced. You have to be okay with being out of balance for a little bit of time. It ebbs and flows, it's back and forth. You can't be too deep into work for a long period of time, but you can for a short period of time if necessary. And that's where I'm at right now.
Yep. You're buried deep into the work right now, but you know that there's a benefit to that, and it's a I feel I'm called a price, but a price you're willing to pay, right?
It is a price you pay. Yep, that's right.
Exactly.
For
So,
the short
Eric,
term.
let's chat quick about before we jumped right in a couple things there philosophically already, but um, so give us the Eric Stoll story. Who in the world is Eric Stoll? Where are you from? I know you got a great family. Grew up in that Summertown area. Been involved with Summertown Metals. Let's get a little background before we go rolling into Old South, if you don't mind.
Well, we'll go straight into it. So, born and raised Amish in Lowellville, Tennessee. And in 2016, I'm sorry, in 2006, my dad started a company called Summertown Metals. And we were just a small mom and pop, you might say. And we grew, put in our first roll former in 2011, started manufacturing metal roofing panels and siding. And then in 2016, two of my brothers and I purchased Summertown Metals. So that continued to grow. A lot of energy and ambition poured into that, and it did quite well. And as we grew and kept growing, I started looking into more opportunities. One thing I looked into was pressure treating lumber. It always fascinated me how you could take wood and the processes you go through with the drying, the planing, and then the pressure treating, the different treatment options, especially after you handle a couple of claims with pressure treated wood failures. And that's something that I had anticipated Summertown Metals doing. My other brothers weren't interested in it as much as me. So, it became something that I ventured off into on my own. So in April of 2021, I made the decision. I still remember the day and the minute. And in October 3rd of 2021, which is exactly a year ago today, was my last day there and my first day over at Old South Wood Preserving.
Wow.
So packed my stuff up in a box, in a handful of boxes, backed my truck up to the door, and I rented a little room above a fitness center in Summertown, downtown Summertown, we call it. And if you blink when you drive through downtown, you'll miss it.
Okay.
But we were up in a little office, 2 flights of steps, and I had a table and a computer. to do my scheduling and my emails and stuff like that. So that's basically where we started. Big
Wow.
field of dirt.
I remember when you were posting that field of dirt, and it's just cool because I love entrepreneurship. I love business. I love people taking a dream, right, and just stepping out of the comfort zone and just going for it. And that's exactly what you've done. And that was one of the big draws, Eric, to having you on the show, because the name of the show is Building Wins for a reason. It building wins. It's about the building business because I mean that's the world I live in, but that has very little to do with the name. Building wins is in all aspects of life, right? And we talk about that a lot on this show with different guests, and so you really it fascinated me to watch the process from zero. I mean, I didn't know about the little above the fitness center office. That's even adds another layer that's kind of cool. But I still remember the days watching your posts with, nothing but dirt and watching the process. So that had to be uh, exciting and a bit rock in the gut feeling both at the same time, right?
Well, I was looking back, I was a little more naive than I would easily admit. But one thing that really, really helped me is being able to go from working in an office to working in an office. I could have worked from home. I'm the kind of person that needs structure. I need to have a place to be at 7 in the morning. Working from home, and I have four little children, ages 1 to 10.
Oh,
Love being around them, but my home office isn't a place where I can shut the door and do my thing. So, yeah, one thing that really helped me was working with some engineers that were able to sit down and draw my site plan for me, give me the perimeters that I needed. And I don't know if you're familiar with what a site plan is, but it's an engineer's drawing that shows the elevations, it shows the buildings and the storm drains. And it just really brought the whole Old South wood preserving plant to life when you looked at a copy of that.
hmm.
And I could hand it to my dirt person and explain what we were doing. And I didn't have to leave it up to chance. So I was naive, had some good people working with me, and we had a plan, which gave me a lot of comfort. Had a budget, we had a plan, we had a schedule, and a lot of that ended up getting changed as we went a little bit. But you have to start with something, Randy.
Well, exactly, and it's interesting because I love that process. So you obviously started with the dream, right? The thought, the dream idea. This is what Eric Stoll and family want to do, right? But then, like you said, the next obvious thing is into the planning stage, and what I think was really well said and interesting to me is that having the engineers draw up the drawings, because at some point it's still this idea in your head, Old
Right.
South wood preserving, and there's going to be some buildings and some treatment stuff and some chemicals, and somehow or another we're going to take untreated wood and it'll come out the other end magically as treated, right? But you don't. All of a sudden you see the plan, right? And it's like, okay, I know exactly where this is all going to be, and then all of a sudden it's real, and that's got to be probably a pretty exciting time when the realization was, this is real, this is really happening, not a dream anymore.
It is. And one thing that I'll add that it helped me with quite a bit was recruiting help, recruiting team members, a general manager. I could sit down with them and go over my plan, the person I actually did hire, and my vision was clear enough that they could catch it and understand it as well. It wasn't just a hypothetical up in my head, hoping that it would happen.
That makes a lot of sense because so many times people fail because they forgot that one step right there is you have to make it real. And then the other part of that I found really interesting to me as I watched your progress all the time was you did the one thing that you have to do with everything is at some point you got to execute, right, or take action, and getting those drawings done, signing that first piece of paper, whatever it was, whether there's land or whatever the first legitimate piece of paper that you signed, your Eric Stoll on, for Old South wood preserving, that all of a sudden set them wheels in action, right? And it's like no going back now.
It was the first check for the deposit on the equipment
That
was
is,
the point where there's no backing up.
yep.
So, and that's something that I had to do for myself, and I never regretted doing for myself, was making that commitment.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, well,
there you
hey,
have it.
commitment is, yeah, your commitment is so important, and then and 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 obviously, belief is so important. You believed in it all the time, but you can dream it and you can plan it. You can even take action, right? But man, you got to believe, don't you? You got to believe this is the right thing for me to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's what I want to be doing. Because without that belief part of it, it becomes a job as opposed to part of your life, right? And I'm going to take a wild guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's not the most important part of your life because I know you're a great family man, but it's intertwined. There's Eric Stoll, family man, Eric Stoll, owner of Old South Wood Preserving, but there's a lot of intertwining there, right? It's a you get the package with Eric Stoll. I'm believing.
There is. And one thing that I want to mention is I'm a big believer in writing your goals down, whether they're personal, financial, or business goals. I've been writing a goal of having a work environment that my 10-year-old son can work in by the time he's 14 years old. And I know that he's 4 years away from that, but I've always been wanting to create an environment that my children can work in. And I didn't have that. We had outgrown that where I was. And I think that it was having a multitude of goals like that that helped propel me in the right direction for where I'm at today.
Yeah, that's
So
that's good stuff. So you had a fascination, so that was your driver for wood preserving versus something else, was just your fascination with dealing with treated lumber at Summertown Metals and the issues that arose and the things that came, or the problems, the hassles, the issues. It what's I think you sort of answered it, but is that the driving force to doing pressure treating wood versus, I don't know, making some other widget?
Randy, there's so much opportunity in the wood preserving industry. Wood preserving is just a way to get to the sawing and the kiln drying and all of those other value add things.
Okay,
And I'm fascinated with every part of that.
gotcha.
So
So it's a starting point,
it's a
and then
starting point, and it's a big starting point too, but it's a starting point.
perfect, perfect. So let's talk about real briefly, and let's get in a little bit about what you actually do there. Um, from the day you said I'm doing this, what was the time frame to be up and turn the key that first day in the office? And also, maybe a two-part question. I'd love to hear the feelings when you showed up at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock a.m. day one of this is real today. I mean, up until that point, right? It was, we're still working on it. We're still building. We're still finishing. We got to finish this electrical. We got to finish a driveway. But there had to be a day, right? It's official. We're opening the door today as Old South. That had to be hugely gratifying, I would think.
So it wasn't as cool as people would think it was. But on a Monday morning, one thing I'll back up, I have a great coach that works with me. And we went through a 2-day planning stage before I ever opened the doors, probably in September. We took 2 days, we planned every aspect. What is the ideal customer? What is the team going to look like? What is the revenue going to look like? Let's plan a year. And when you plan a year and you haven't even taken the first step, your year looks a little bit different by the time you get there. But the day one was very easy because we knew exactly what our process was going to look like. We thought we did, and we executed on what we knew. So day one, getting there at 7 o'clock, setting up the desks, putting together office chairs, not something I'm accustomed to doing, by the way, but I learned how to put together office chairs. And I have an assistant that worked with me for the previous years at my other job, and she was helping me. So she's got a background in accounting, background in some business administration. So that was very, very helpful.
Yeah. So you started, got coached, which I think is an important thing, ready to go day one. You were prepared as you could be for an opening of a new business, right? But then you also you hit a word earlier that I like is you talked about adapting, and you had a lot of adaptions, right? Because every day is the potential, every second, every minute of every day for some kind of an adaptation, right? And you got to be prepared for that and fleet-footed, I guess, if that makes sense.
One big thing that I had to adapt to was going from working in an office with 50 people in it to not being around people. So I would work probably 3 or 4 hours in my office by myself. And then I'd come out to the job site where they're pushing dirt and moving trees. And, I'd help with that. And I could run equipment. I have some of my own equipment, but we started framing our office building here in the 1st of November. And I oversaw that as a general contractor, and took us 75 days from the foundation to moving in. And we were in our office building.
That's pretty
So
fast.
that happened. And during that time, also, we're designing the pressure treating plant, designing the foundations, working with the Department of Water, the EPA, all of those things, getting those lined out. So we went straight from moving into the office to starting concrete and laying rebar and handling foundations. So that was a good transition.
That's good. It kept you busy. So,
Oh,
what what for anybody that may not know, and most people in our industry that will watch this will know, but explain a little bit about the process of what you guys are doing there. Well, pressure treating. What you're just let me walk us through the maybe the layman's term 101 course of what is pressure treating. What do you guys do there?
sure. So wood, basically, when it gets to our plant, most of the time, it's going to be sawed at the mill and kiln dried. And we take it into the plant, which is just a little bit over an acre under roof. And we'll load it on a set of tram cars, 2 bundles high by 64 foot long. And we can basically roll a truckload of lumber into a round cylinder at a time to pressure treat. And we have 2 cylinders. We have 1 cylinder. We treat with 2 different chemicals. I know I'm bouncing around here.
That's okay.
Most of our timbers, like the 6x6 and 8x8 posts, we treat 0.60 CCA. And our dimensional boards, we treat with copper azole. So those 2 chemicals don't mix well. So they each have their own side of the plant. But we can our plant's designed to treat about 20 truckloads a day when we're at full capacity. So we're nowhere near that yet, but we're going to get there one day.
Oh, absolutely. So 20 trucks seems like a lot. What's the? I'm just curious. This is more my curiosity, but what's the average length of time in the treatment chamber?
So the wood goes into the treatment chamber by the truckload almost, and it's under an initial vacuum that opens those wood pores.
Mm-hmm.
It opens those wood pores for about 10 minutes, and then the cylinder floods with chemical, and it's under pressure for about 15 minutes. And then there's another vacuum that takes out all the excess fluid out of the wood and puts it back in a concentrate tank to be used again. So the process is about 50 minutes,
Okay.
but it's also dependent on the thickness of the wood, the moisture content in the wood. We have a control system that allows us to see real-time progress as it's treating and the amount of penetration that it's getting. So we can make adjustments on the fly if the wood's drier than normal, doesn't take as long for it to treat. So
Oh, okay.
that's one thing about Southern Yellow Pine. It is the most friendly wood to pressure treat because those softwood cells are so big that they carry the preservative all the way through.
Okay.
So
So I've been around this industry my whole life. I've handled a lot of pressure treated in my day. building barns way back when I was much younger. And but so this might be a stupid question, but that's okay. You got the lift, I'll call it, of lumber that you're sliding into the chamber. Uh, a novice thinking would be getting kind of real technical here now for a minute, and we'll go back to something more exciting, I suppose. Uh, how do you control or don't you control? My assumption would be the outside of the pile, if you will, are going to have more treatment than the inside of the pile just by logistics or just by nature of where it's at in the pile as you roll it into the chamber, right? Is that true or not true, or is that controllable?
So it's controllable. And most people have a hard time visualizing why we would not have to take the entire bundle apart to go ahead and separate each board. But uh, when it goes in and the initial vacuum is 25 minus psi, and while it's under vacuum, it's pressured at about 180 psi to 190. And there's no problems with it treating the center boards as much as it does the outside boards.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So
Perfect. So, Eric, what kind of area and what's your typical customer base? Are you what's your model customer, or is it lumber yards? Is it builders? Is it both? What are you how are you going to market? What's your plan?
our model customer is a retail store that caters the pole barn industry.
Okay.
As we're going on, we're finding more connections in the fencing industry,
Hmm.
the rough sawn fence boards, rough sawn 4x4s, and eventually we'll be able to work with the storage building industry a little more so as we can offer the items that they're looking for. So, but the pole barn industry is what we want to cater to.
Okay. So you'll be able to take them. You'll be able to deliver the solid sawn poles and all the dimensional lumber all on one load. Is that kind of the theory?
All on one load. If you need a couple bundles of 6x6s, if you need a truckload of non-treated lumber, got it as well.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can take care of you. So
Well,
we also have our own four-sided planer mill, and it's quite a heavy-duty system that we can take our 8x8 posts from rough sawn and run them through plane all four sides at one time, take them down to 7.5. We offer tongue and groove servicing to 2x6s.
oh, you
So
do.
if you need 2x6 tongue and groove, we run that here at our own mill. 1x6 tongue and groove. So that's just a little bit of what we do.
That's pretty full service, I'd say. That covers all the bases. I would say most of the bases in the pole barn industry, anyway.
It does, and we're just looking for opportunities that are out there for us to expand and grow into areas that are hard for the other people around us to service. We're going to be there ready to step in and meet the need.
Yep, there you go. Love it. So, how big an area are you looking? I mean, obviously, eventually trucks can go pretty much anywhere, I suppose. But is there any logistic limitations as to where you'd haul a truckload of material right now, or where are
So
you
right
focused on?
now, the area that we're targeting mostly is going to be Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, and the southern part of Illinois,
Okay.
all the way up into a little bit of south of North Carolina.
Okay. So that's still a
So,
pretty good area.
oh, it's a good area. There's a
Yeah.
lot of opportunity in that area. I'll just say that.
Exactly. So, how are you? How are you? Are you got a website you're working on? I know it's going to be live before long. Are you going to rely a lot on website and social media marketing? What's your plan to get the word out to people?
So my plan to get the word out, I use social media. I think social media is important. I think a website's important, but I like to call people.
Hmm.
I like to place a couple of phone calls, have a few conversations, and then show up in person. That's what I love to do. If I'll have two conversations with someone and they're interested, I'll go get in my pickup tomorrow and drive over to meet them, and we'll do business.
Love it. So there's some after all these years working sort of inside mostly, right? Uh, Eric Stoll's going to be a bit of a road warrior, are you not?
Well, I am, and I've It's come a long ways here at Old South Wood Preserving with me hiring a general manager. He's been able to take over most of the operations side here, so it frees me up to do that. My goal would be to be on the road at least once every other day or once every 2 or 3 days a week, probably, at least during the initial, acquiring customers.
Perfect. Perfect. That's awesome. So you because that's a semi segue. You asked me a question off air before we got on that you wanted to ask me. You still want to ask it?
I do. Hybrid road warrior Randy. What does that mean?
Well, you kind of touched on the first part. Um, for years, I considered myself and even adopted a hashtag of hashtag Road Warrior Randy because that's what I've always been. I've been 4+ decades in this crazy goofy game, and I'll do it forever because I just love it that much. But I was all about what you just talked about: jumping in the car, packed with literature, packed with samples, no room for. If I remember sometimes, Eric, where somebody'd go, I'd say, let's go to lunch. I'm going, well, got to go out and unload stuff out of the front seat because there's no room, right? I mean, I've got it packed, um, and lived my life that way, pounding the highways, windshield time, and loved it. And probably would have never changed, except for this little goofy thing 3 years ago. Well, not say goofy, but came along called COVID, right? When
Right.
this whole lockdown thing happened, all of a sudden I couldn't do that. And long story short, uh, I started doing almost all virtual shows. Like started this show with Wes that you met, my director, producer, buddy, friend, pal, bodyguard, everything else that he is. Uh, then started guesting on some show, started doing a little more social media, then more social media, and visual text and or virtual text because I couldn't travel to see people, right? And so getting to the story quick, there become these two facets. There was the old school, uh, old normal, I guess I'll call it, that I'm just going to wait till we go back to the quote or old normal. And
Right.
then there was the new normal people that were nobody's ever going to call on a customer again in person ever. Nobody's ever going to rent a car. Nobody's ever going to go to a hotel and go see a customer in the morning, get on an airplane. Never going to happen. I looked at both of them and I go wrong and wrong because the old you can always learn something from, right? You can learn some new ways, some new force multipliers on how you expand what you do and be better and be more places at one time. So, but I also understand with most industries and especially ours, Eric, we are in a bro hug and glad handing and meeting people's parents and their families and their kids and going to funerals and weddings and meet them at the coffee shop. I mean, we're a person to person industry more than a lot are, right? And so I said, it can't be all just quote new normal either. And so that's where the name hybrid come up. As I said, there's got to be a hybrid way of marrying those two, right? To be able to do a combination. And so it serves me well because when I couldn't travel, I can fall back on 100% virtual, new way if I need to. Uh, when I have trade shows back to back to back to back, I can fall fully into old school Randy, right? 12 hours, 15, 18 hours a day of like I like to call shaking hands, bro hugging and kissing babies, right? Or we can combine the two together and, and I think that's a big force multiplier. So that's my long version of what that was. So thank
And
you
let
for
me
asking.
clarify something for people just so they know. It sounds all like fun and games, 12, 15 hours out there on the road. And I'm the worst for working all day at the office, flying somewhere after work, being there the next day and getting home at midnight the following evening. It's hard. It is
It's
not as easy as people would think.
that's a great point, Eric, because I know a lot of people, or met a lot of people in my forever time frame of doing this, that that must be fun. That must be a blast. You're different restaurant every night and different town, and you run. Yes, a silver lining of a bad scenario. I remember the time that when the world shut down, really. I mean, I was traveling. I needed to get home. And all of a sudden, it's like we may never travel in life again, right? It seemed like it for a bit. Um, I had just come off of 11 out of 12 weeks of, I mean, hard. I'm talking maybe Friday night or Saturday morning getting home, Sunday evening or Monday morning at 5 o'clock, new suitcase or new packed suitcase, new stuff, new town, new rental cars, new, right? Run, run, run. A week or two or three in, it's still blast because that's what I do. That's what I know. 5 or
Right.
6 weeks in, it's getting a little bit, wow, you know. And then about the sixth or seventh or eighth week, you wake up in a hotel room and you're thinking and you're thinking and you're looking around and you finally have to pick your phone up and bring your calendar up to figure out what stupid town am I in what stupid state, and who am I supposed to go see today? Because you've done it so long, so much, so pounding that you hit a fatigue factor that you work through, but the fun just went away a little bit.
Right.
Now it all of a sudden became a job for that last 3 or 4 weeks, and I don't like that because I love what I do so much. I don't want it to ever feel like a job. And I'll tell you, at the end of some of those long runs, it starts feeling like a job. So by being able to do more hybrid stuff, it does two things. It does make me more effective and not have to travel as much sometimes, but it also gives me fun things to do that I look forward to. Like if I'm at a trade show, I can do 5, 6, 7 uh, uh, videos from the trade show. I'm sure you'll be at NFBA either. I don't know if you're going to display or be there, but I'm sure you'll be at the NFBA show.
I'm going to
I,
display.
Perfect. You and I will be, I'm proclaiming it right now here, we'll be doing a live video together at the show, 3, 4 minutes, right? That stuff brings me juice, man, right? So I get to enjoy and I get some new fun things other than, don't get me wrong, I like trade shows, but hey, how you doing? Would you like to see a sample of my new screw? Hey, I got this closure strip. You want to see it? Isn't that really good? It's like, okay, can you shoot me now? Because it's like, whew, that's a lot, right? After
You
a
can
while,
only
it's
make it
just,
so cool.
yeah. So it does allow me to interject a lot more juice and fun into what I do.
Right. Let me
That's
tell
the
you something that I have learned from my perspective in the retail world. As a go getter, I don't have to see a salesman every week or every month, but there's nothing that takes the place of face to face
right.
conversation once in a while. So I think
Exactly.
that your hybrid road warrior Randy style of getting out there when you need to, there's nothing that'll take the place of that, Randy.
Oh, I agree. I agree, and I never want to lose sight of that. And not the problem, but I'll never lose sight of it because here's the deal. It's like once in a while when I'm on a real run, and I say a run, I call that like 3, 4 weeks of pretty hard going. Second, third week, you start going, yeah, tomorrow I got to leave again. It's gonna be a long, tough week. You could easily go, man, I wish I wasn't doing this, kind of, right? But
Right.
usually about 4 to 8 miles down the road, first phone call with a customer, I'm back in road warrior mode, buddy, and it is glorious, right? It's just, this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I want to be. And it's like, Katie, bar the door, let's go, right? So, but this gives me just enough break from time to time to, and a last example, because I want to go back to a couple things that you can get you out of here, is is at the initial using force multipliers, being more places at one time, taking advantage of as much as you can. Sometimes there's that initial, hey, I'm from New Hampshire. I heard you sell screws. What do you got? Well, let's jump on a Zoom call quick, right? I'll show you what I have. We'll get to know each other a little bit. And by all means, if it makes sense from your end and my end to go to the next step, as in meeting, of course we'll do that in a second. But I didn't just spend $900 on a flight and $300 on rental cars and hotels and all that stuff in 2 days of time and wasted their time if there's zero interest here, because it might not work for one or the other or both. Maybe you're not the right customer for me, right?
Right.
Maybe I'm not the right supplier for you. And so I think there is some force multipliers in doing that. And nothing beats face to face. But I think doing these type of things, Zoom calls, team meetings, where you, at least you can look the person in the eye, you can see the body language. And then, the beautiful thing with that, Eric, is that when I do show up in 3 weeks, you look out the window, you go, hey, that's Randy. I recognize him because you saw me, right? And then if you couple that with, like we talked about with social media, and I love your approach to that, you follow each other, and because I'm insane sometimes, but you've probably in that 3 weeks saw me doing something goofy on social media for about 497 times. So you really kind of know who I am when I walk in, and you know how I think, and you know how I talk, and you know what I believe, right? And
Right.
so it's not a cold call. It's not even a semi-warm call. It's pretty hot, right? Doesn't mean you're going to buy, because maybe we can't put the stuff together, right? And that's fine. But we really, and that's what I talk about with force multipliers. That makes sense. So, anyways, great question. Thank you. You ought to just host this show. I'm going to quit.
Oh,
I
I
think you're
love it.
better. I think you're
I,
better.
I can identify with what you're speaking of, the getting out there and the meeting people. That's so effective. Not the cold call where you just show up. That's been effective for me from time to time, but my success rate is very lower.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I think in today's world, what people think of as a cold call, and I know I have a good personal friend of mine, Christine Harrington, the Savvy Sales Lady, who she's been on my show. We've been friends for years. Absolute, I was just say, well, queen of cold calling. I mean, if you need cold calling done, I mean, literally, hey, Eric Stoll, here's your number. Hey, spot on, the best I've ever seen. Amazing at it. I don't like that, and I'm not particularly good at that. You got to know your weaknesses, right? But in today's world, and I know she does the same thing. In today's world, there's so much information. First, did you, I hate people that walk in and go, yeah, do you guys handle screws? Well, I'm a metal place, so probably, yeah. But my mind would say, A, didn't you Google me? B, did you find me on LinkedIn? Did you get an idea of what I do? Because I don't have to call you, Eric, and say, so Old South wood preserving. I assume that you treat wood, right? I guess I would assume I should know that, right? I should know that.
right. That's
So
right.
I'm not going into a full cold call like is to me a cold call would be. So I found your name in Old South Wood Preserving. Sounds like maybe you do something with wood and preserving. Is that what you do, Eric? If I was you, I'd say, dude, do your research, man. Right? I mean, I might think it. Right? You're too nice a guy to probably say it, but you can go into that call so much more prepared without a whole lot of effort. And if you don't take the effort, in my belief today, and this is my shout out to anybody new that might be getting involved in sales, if you're not going to take that effort, in my opinion, it'll get noticed by a lot of people. Because, dude, there's no reason you didn't know that. That's an easy one. That's like going to a McDonald's and saying, "Do you guys have hamburgers?" Pretty clear we have hamburgers, right? So I think at this point, if you can't make the effort to know a little bit about me as a customer, I don't know how interested I may be in entertaining a whole lot of your time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And let me ask you this, and maybe this is a question for later. Do you have a pitch for cold calling? Do you have a specific line that you go into the call with?
I know people that believe in pitches, and I think they're good probably for younger, inexperienced guys, maybe that aren't doing it, or maybe don't know their product as well, don't know the industry as well, or just haven't built a confidence level as well. So the answer to that question is I don't have a written pitch. I don't have a written because it's really investigatory from my standpoint. I would call you if you were more in my, and we were in the same industry, but I don't necessarily have product you would buy, right? But if you
Right.
did, if I call on Summertown Metal, which I don't because they're not my territory, but I know your brother and people. I would be able to I've done this long enough that I would be able to start the conversation. I know what you guys use for I know what competitor you're using because I've investigated that. I know how long you've been in business. I have a pretty good idea how big you are. And it's really I think I found you're asking this question, I'll answer it directly. It's an investigatory conversation day one. I am not here to sell you zero, not thinking about an order today. I say I don't want an order today, and I always preface that with, but I'll take it because I'm not stupid. But if you give me an order today, that means either you can't get it from your current supplier, and that's not going to be long term, or my price is too cheap, and that's not going to be long term, right? So it's really an investigatory. Is there something for you and I, right, that makes sense? And if it does, let's further the conversation, right? If it doesn't
Sure.
make sense for either of us or both, because win-wins or building wins has to be win-wins. That's an old concept, right? But if it doesn't win, if I don't win and you don't get a win, sooner or later one of us is going to leave, right?
Right.
It's going to happen. It's in all, and that's all. That's universal law relationships. You take a young guy and a young girl and they're dating. If at some point you both don't win in this relationship, one of you is going to bail. I mean, I can't lose all of them. I might be willing to lose 80% of them. That's each person, right? But somewhere or another, I need some wins here. And if I'm
Right.
getting none, and because we just, as much as I'd love to believe we are the product for every person in America, we're probably not. And you may not be the right customer for me. So if I go into a very investigatory, very low key, let's just see, because they know I've been doing this for a long time. If they know me at all, of course I'm a sales guy, and of course I want to sell you stuff. I don't really need to make a big deal out of that, right? Because
Right.
you kind of know that. So, anyways, that's my thing. It works for me
Interesting.
anyway. But and that's the
Thanks
key
for
though.
talking about that.
Everybody has to do their thing though. But um, well, Eric, you have been incredibly kind with your time, and I appreciate it. And anything I missed that you'd like to talk about before we wrap this thing? If any should ask questions that I may have got to run in my mouth too long and fell into guest mode for a minute because you asked a couple great questions and I couldn't help myself. So
No,
anything that I should have asked?
I can't wait to get back with you on a phone call later or meet you at MetalCon. I don't know if you're going to be there next
Oh
week.
yeah, you could be there
I'm,
next week.
I'm going to be there,
Absolutely.
not in as an exhibitor, but I'm going to be there. So we'll meet up and
Oh yeah,
look
make sure
forward to it.
you got my cell phone number. Make sure if you see me, holler out. Otherwise, shoot me a text when you get there. Or call me and we'll meet up.
Okay.
I,
Thank you
I,
very
I,
much,
I,
Randy.
I do drink coffee, so if you want to meet up for coffee, I'm always up for coffee, even at
Okay.
4 in the afternoon. So, all right,
Sounds
sounds good,
good.
Eric. I
Thank
appreciate you,
you.
brother. Thank you much.
See you.
All right,
Bye.
what do you think of that? Some good stuff from Eric Stoll down at Old South Wood Preserving, and I say beautiful summer town. Like Eric said, it's about this big. But great part of the world. Tennessee's an awesome state, and if one thing about it, you can buy from Eric. I can tell you right now, he's on the A game, and you're gonna love working with him. So if you can use any kind of treated lumber or untreated, as he said, make sure to look him up, give him a call, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So that's it. I am going to go build a few more wins. How about you? Don't forget to build some wins every day. And couple things one thing I like to say, and I'm gonna preface this with, if you don't listen to anything else, love what you do and do what you love. My friend, my pal, my producer, director, buddy, by what I miss, bodyguard, occasional bodyguard, Wes Wyatt always talks about this a lot. Is you need to be doing what you love and loving what you do. So make sure you do that. Live it, love it, own it, grasp it, seize the day, and make today your best day ever. Until tomorrow. Got to run.